Okay, so in this video we're going to draw our sheet metal tray. We need to analyze some of the dimensions first before we get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at our total width and our total height. So we break this down. We've got a base here, and this base has a width of 4 inches and a height of 5 inches. And then on each of the sides there's the side panels right here, and then a hem. And that's on all 4 of our sides. The side is 1 inch tall or 1 inch wide in this case. And then the hems are all 1/4 of an inch tall or wide depending upon their orientation. So we need to add 1 1/4 inches to each end of these measurements. So 5 inches, if we add 1 inch from here and 1 inch from down here, becomes 7 inches. We add 1/4 to that plus another 1/4, then we have 2/4, which is 1/2 inch. So then we total it all up. 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1/2 inch is 7.5. And then we'll do the same math on our width here, only the sides are exactly the same. So if we take 7.5, we just subtract the 1 inch difference between these two measurements, we simply get 6.5 inches. So our width is 6.5. Our height is 7.5, so that's the first rectangle that I'm going to draw here. So if we switch over to our document camera, I'm working on the back of a cutting board because it's very smooth. If you don't have a smooth surface to work on, that's going to be one of the first hurdles for you. So the first thing we're going to do, if we're freehanding a rectangle, we're not using anything other than a ruler. We're just going to take our piece of paper here, and along one side, maybe about 1/2 inch in or so, it doesn't have to be precise, we're just going to draw a long vertical line. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is off of that long vertical line, we're going to measure out our width, and like I said, our width is 6.5 inches. So we'll measure out, again making sure 0 is right on our line here. Put a dot at 6.5. And we're going to continue that process. We're going to do this 3 times all the way up. The reason why is if we're holding our ruler at a weird angle, or any number of issues are coming up, like maybe I'm not putting my ruler right at 0 on the line. Having multiple data points here like this will actually help compensate for that. You can see we have 1, 2, and 3 dots. So next I'm going to put my pen or pencil right on the first dot, and I'll put the ruler right up to it and swing it into place, so we're kind of taking the average of all 3 of these dots. Draw a nice line. So now we have 2 parallel lines, and they are 6.5 inches apart, which is exactly what we want for our width. Now we're going to rotate our paper 90 degrees. We're going to start drawing our 7.5 inch height now. The first thing we want to do, and this is the most difficult part about freehanding a rectangle, is we want to try and project a line across here that's at 7.5 inches. And again, I'm kind of doing this up toward the top of the paper. You notice it's about 3/4 of an inch or so in from the top of the paper. I'm not using a protractor or anything to measure our angle, so this really is a bit of guesswork here. But we're just going to draw a line straight across. Okay. Then what we'll do is we're going to measure down here from where we just drew this line down 7.5 inches, or to our right. Okay, so we'll draw right along the line. I'm going to make a mark right here at 7.5. We're going to go to the other side and do the exact same thing. Make a mark at 7.5. And then we're just going to connect those 2 dots up. Okay, so here's our rectangle. Alright, so now we have a rectangle. Now we want to make sure that this rectangle is square and it's not like a parallelogram or shifted or anything like that. So the best way to check is to measure diagonally across it. So we're going to put our ruler as a 0 mark right here. in this corner. And I'm just going to take a measurement, and that measurement is 9 7/8, a little, maybe almost 9 15/16, kind of between the two. So we'll just kind of keep that measurement in our head, and then we're going to rotate. We're going to do the same thing from the other two corners of our rectangle, and the measurement should be the same if it's square. And our measurement is spot on. Okay, so we've got a nice square rectangle here. Square meaning that all the corners are 90 degrees. So now we're going to look back at our drawing. Just open that up. Okay. Okay, so now we have our outside rectangle drawn, and now we're going to look at the internals. So we're going to come in from the outside of our rectangle. We want to come in 1 1/4 inches to do our base. We want to draw our base. So basically these dashed lines, we're going to continue them all the way across. So we're going to do 1 1/4 inches in from each side, all 4 sides of our rectangle. So let's see what that looks like. Like I said, we're working our way in from the outside now that we have our outside perimeter established. So we're just going to measure in 1 inch and 1/4. We'll come up and do the same thing. 1 inch and 1/4. And put our pen right on the dot. Swing our ruler into place afterwards. Then draw a nice straight line. And you notice when I'm holding my ruler that I'm spreading the weight out across the whole ruler so that it doesn't pivot or anything. And that gives us a nice straight line. We'll rotate our paper, and we're just going to keep repeating that process of measuring in 1 1/4 inches until we get our base completely drawn out. So again, 2 dots. Always need at least 2 dots to be able to draw a straight line. Can't do it with any less. More is always helpful. Okay. Keep rotating our paper and repeating the process. 1 1/4 and 1 1/4. Okay. Draw our line. And we'll do our last line to complete our base. Again, ruler at 0. Put a mark. Ruler at 0 here. Put a mark. So here's our 2 dots, 1, 2. And we're just going to draw straight across. Okay. So we can ignore these little bits here, these tails, and then those up there too, but they're not as different. So if you wanted to verify some of your measurements here, you could check these squares are 1 1/4 inches square. They need to look square, number 1. But number 2, you could measure them. You could just kind of double check. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our 1/4 inch hems all the way around. So if we look at one of our sample drawings here from period 3-4, we're adding these little 1/4 inch strips like we have at the bottom here. Again, in from the very outside. Okay. So we're just going to measure in 1/4 inch. There. I'm going to try and keep these inside of inside of my side box here and not go into these squares, but if you do go into the squares, it's not the end of the world. Again, repeating that process. Okay. We'll do this 2 more times. Finish out our hems. One thing you can do if the end of your ruler is messed up, you can always slide down to the nearest whole inch measurement and use that as your 0 instead. I'll show you that on the next one. Okay. Alright, so if the end of your ruler is messed up, like say somebody ground this on a grinder or broke it or whatever, I can just put 1 on this line instead and just measure to 1 1/4 instead and get the exact same result. The 1/4 is a 1/4. Okay. Okay. So now we've got all of our hems laid out. We've got our base. So base, side, and we'll sneak it in here, hem. Okay, let's see if we can zoom in here. Okay, so we're going to zoom in just a little bit so we can start working on our corners now. So again, if we look at our corners that we want to draw, we want to cut off this corner, but we also want to take a little bit off of our hems here and here. Okay, and then we're going to bisect this square, and then we'll eventually cut it out. So again, we're trying to connect this intersection and that intersection right there. Not the outside points of the square, but a little bit in. We're just going to use our ruler as a straight edge for that. Again, put our pen in place, then move the ruler into place, and just come all the way across like that. Okay. We'll do this one more time, and here's where we're going to cut our square in half, straight out. And then I'm just going to scribble out what I don't want to keep. Okay, and then we have to make a decision which one of these are we going to keep. I like these pointing up, so we're going to get rid of this one. Then we're going to do one more here. Again, connecting where our hems connect up. And we'll bisect our square. Okay, we're going to just darken all this in. And then again, so we want to decide, we decided that we want our triangle pointing up, so we need to make the one on the other side the same as well. So we're going to get rid of this one so that we have a pair of triangles pointing up. Okay, and then we would do the same process right here at the top. And that's essentially how you draw this layout for our sheet metal tray.